Hello, Mr. Forbes. Today I'm going to present to you my project, which is Management Theory versus the Reality. I'll be doing it for the respiratory therapist job, and I'll be comparing chapter 1 and 4 with the job. So this is my video content. First of all, I'll talk about what is a respiratory therapist, then I'll talk about chapter 1 and 4 compared to the respiratory therapist. I'll also tell you how I did my project, my conclusion, and my bibliography. So, first of all, what is a respiratory therapist? A respiratory therapist has a very important role in hospital. They are certified medical professionals who specialize in providing health care for a patient's lung. They have advanced knowledge of the high-tech equipment used to help patients breathe, and also of the monitors that monitor them. Respiratory therapists work alongside nurses, and doctors. There are many types of respiratory therapists. First, there are the emergency room therapists. This type happens in a hospital, more specifically in emergency rooms. The respiratory therapists provide assistance in the cases, and they also help people recover from heart and lung surgery in the post-surgery. They also assist in the complicated surgeries that occur and are the assistants of doctors who need information on the heart rate/breathing of the patient. The second respiratory therapist type is surgery respiratory therapists. In fact, they assist in the day-to-day surgeries and also put the patient to sleep before the surgery and monitor the patient while the surgery is occurring. For example, they will monitor the heart rate and tell the doctor any important information during the surgery. Third, there are the adult and pediatric respiratory therapists. They will meet patients or go to their homes to take care of their respiratory problems and solve them if necessary. They will teach the patients on how to use certain medicine for asthma and problem related to breathing. They can also install and teach them how to use their breathing machines. They basically help them to make their quality of life better. Now that I have briefly explained what is a respiratory therapist and their roles, I will analyze what is the management for respiratory therapists in hospitals and what do they do to be more efficient. Because we all know that hospitals need first to be efficient and second, they have a lot of pressure. I will be asking questions to a respiratory therapist and I will see if the answers she gives me are the same as the theory learned in class. Continue listening to my video to know more. So, let's go to chapter 1, which is management. In this chapter, we learn about the basics of management. For example, what is management, the management functions, what the managers do, and more. According to the management book that we use in class, some basic management issues are: how do we plan to get things done? How do we organize the company to be efficient and effective? How do we lead and motivate employees? And how do we put controls in place to make sure our plans are followed and our goals are met? As we all know, management is in every organization, company, institution, every place where something or someone has to be managed. To be different, I wanted to see how management was in some place other than a company, so a hospital. This is why I took the questions from the chapter 1 and I asked them to a respiratory therapist. These are the questions and answers. So first question, who would be the top managers, middle manager, first line managers, team leaders in the respiratory therapist field? So the top manager would be the general manager of the hospital. The middle manager would be the chief of service of respiratory therapists. The first line manager would be the assistant of the chief. And the team leader would be the technical coordinator. So what are their basic tasks and roles? So for the general manager of the hospital, she is the whole hospital's manager. In fact, he is the manager of the respiratory therapists, the nurses, doctors, janitors, and more. It is very rare that employees meet the general manager. They meet him or her when there is a major issue. Next, chief of service of respiratory therapists is the boss of the respiratory therapist. The chief of service also takes care of everything that has to do with human resources. She is also the chief of service for many hospitals of the same region. In fact, they move a lot. And assistant of the chief. The assistant of the chief always stays in the same hospital. She is basically the chief's right arm. The assistant of the chief will take care of making supply orders and will take care of making the employees' schedules. Next, the technical coordinator. The technical coordinator takes care of teaching the respiratory therapist the new tools and machines that they receive. She is the one that prepares the protocol. If there is any change to be done, he will take care of it and will take care of training the respiratory therapist. Third question. What is a good management and bad management in this field? Good management would be when managers listen to what the respiratory therapists have to say and listen to their demands, because we all know that nobody knows the job better than the ones who work directly on the field. They have to consider employees, and when something does not go well, they must make sure that things will change. Good management also means that they respect employees and listen to them. Bad management in this field is not cutting the budget in places that can't be cut. That will have a negative effect on the patient. It is important that if they make a cut, they make sure that the patient is still okay. Also, an example of bad management that a respiratory therapist told me was that managers sometimes cut on an expensive product, so they get a cheaper product. Although the product is cheaper, it is still more expensive in the long run because the respiratory therapist must use more of this product, so more gets wasted, and the product is finished more quickly than the better quality one. Next, let's move on to chapter 4, which is planning and decision making. In this chapter, we learn all about planning and decision making. We learned about why they were very important aspects for succeeding. Planning and decision making are big parts to being a good manager. It is important that managers figure out problems and find solutions to fix them. In fact, it can be very hard to fix problems and find solutions to them, but this is what makes a good manager. But it is not always about problems. Sometimes planning can be to find ways to reach goals to make the company or organization more efficient. These are questions asked to a respiratory therapist about planning and decision making. First question. How do you plan for the day to make sure that everything goes well? Respiratory therapist's number one goal during the day is to follow the surgery plan, not be late, and make sure that all surgeries are done during the day. Their goal is also not to cancel any patients with surgery scheduled. To do this, the whole team must collaborate and no one can stall the group. Everyone has to work in teams and be ready to work and be efficient. Second question. What is an example of things that you do that proves that teamwork is necessary in your job? When in the operating room, everyone has to do their job. Sometimes there can be a surgery that goes badly. To make it go correctly, the respiratory therapist and the surgeons must make sure that they work in teams to solve the issue. For example, when a patient is bleeding very badly, the respiratory therapist will be the one maintaining the patient by using medicine and blood, but on the other hand, the surgeons also have to act quickly to themselves stop the patient's bleeding. Both groups have very important roles in the team for this case. Another example is that when nurses have a lot to do before surgeries, respiratory therapists will work with them to help them be more efficient. They will do a part of the work for the nurses. In the respiratory therapist field, teamwork, collaboration, and communication is extremely important. So, the tools I used for making the project were, as usual, the book that we use in class and the Wix site. In conclusion, we can see that management is in every sphere of jobs, from doctors to cooks to policemen. And we learn about business management, but there are other kinds of management as well, as we have seen in this video. So here are my sources. Thank you very much.